The last 10 years has brought us some of the best gaming experiences in history. We've had games that shocked us with their depth and replayability, those that had our hearts in our throats from the suspense, and those that were just an all-around great time. However, there have been thousands of games released over the last decade. How do you figure out what your favorites are? Well, I've done a bit of reflecting recently, and I think I've come up with an accurate list of my own. Based on my own tastes and experiences, I'm actually not going to rank these games because I feel they are all too equal in their own right. Keep in mind, this is solely my opinion. There are no official top 10 lists out there. These are just the games that struck me on a level that you just don't see very often, and I encourage you to share your favorites in the comments below. Without further ado, here are my top 10 video games of the decade. After the release and subsequent expansions for Fallout 3, I really didn't think there was a better gaming experience in all of existence. I loved everything about the world of Fallout. The environments, the combat, the VAT system, the lore. In fact, Fallout 3 is the only collector's edition I actually bought after the game came out. When I heard Obsidian was heading up a spin-off of the main series, I was undoubtedly excited. Fallout New Vegas is the best example I can think of as an RPG with an open world that has some of the most engrossing plotlines and lore out there. It's also one of the games I've played the most, spending countless hours trying to get each and every possible ending to fully understand the backstory of each faction roaming the wasteland. Fallout New Vegas is truly a masterpiece, and one that I'm still waiting for Bethesda to outdo. I know, you can't combine two games in one, that's cheating! Normally I'd be inclined to agree with you, but both Nier and Nier Automata work to craft one of the most immersive and profound worlds in gaming history. Nier Gestalt, released in 2010, follows a main hero as they try to save their sick daughter from dying, while working to uncover the secret behind the shades. The game was initially a critical failure, marred heavily by a few reviews from a little-known publication, but I digress. It's gained a considerable cult following over the years, and for very good reason. The indulgent, powerful themes, mixed with the multiple gameplay genres and multiple endings, made Nier an experience best played firsthand. It's a game that not everyone will like, but for the right gamer it will transport you to a world unlike any you've ever experienced. Automata, a spiritual successor to Nier, is a technically superior game as it's much more polished and engaging, but still revolves around many of the same themes as its predecessor. What is it like to be human? What does it mean to be human? What does it take? 2B and company worked to answer these questions in a story that blurs the lines between humanity and man versus machine. Unlike Nier, Automata sold quite well and is often talked about as one of the best games in the 8th generation, balancing gameplay with something much deeper. There are very few times in video games that we can really feel like we're playing through a movie. The Last of Us is certainly one of those times. In an age of gaming flooded with flippant amounts of zombie titles, The Last of Us rose from the ashes to create an experience more immersive than any I have ever experienced in my entire life. The initial zombie outbreak, racing through the streets of your hometown, trying to make your way onto the interstate to escape, droves of chaos at every turn, there isn't a safe place to go. It was very suspenseful and terrifying. Unlike most games that follow the movie first, game second formula, The Last of Us really has some other great game mechanics to boot. The combat feels natural, the AI is smart, and even the action sequences don't feel stale. It is truly one of the highlights of the 2010s. If we're talking about impact, there is a reason that Undertale is on my list. A boy that falls into the underground has to subdue or kill monsters in hopes of ever returning to the earth he knows and loves. Sounds like a pretty generic plot, but what makes Undertale really shine are the little intricacies throughout your playthrough. The dialogue and interactions with the monsters along your journey are affected by how you deal with them in battle. Oh, and there's more than a few secrets lying around for you to discover as well. Let's not forget that the entire game, minus some artwork, was made by one guy? Absolutely nuts! Perhaps part of the reason I love it so much is the earthbound charm that it exudes. It's a modern-day RPG that creator Toby Fox himself said drew partially on influences from the Mother series. He even made his own Earthbound fan game in the past. Past the interesting story and lore of Undertale, the battle system was incredibly refreshing and at times quite difficult. A game that only takes a few hours has forever found a place in my gaming memories. Started as an indie passion project from a guy who just wanted to play a Harvest Moon game on modern hardware, Stardew Valley is the perfect game for people that just want to escape from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. You've just inherited your grandfather's old farm and you're tasked with attempting to restore Stardew Valley to its former greatness. You start from nothing and grow your gardens and farmland into something to be really proud of. It doesn't sound like much, but that's the kind of point I'm trying to make here. Stardew Valley transports the gamer to a world of relaxation, much like the protagonist of the game itself. It's a game I could pick up and play anytime, and with no clear win-lose criteria or end in sight, I truly feel like I'm on the farm myself. It also helps that the game has been released on almost every platform out there, even being able to transfer save data to the mobile versions. Stardew Valley is truly the quintessential farming experience. This one may come as kind of a surprise to some people, but Borderlands is probably my favorite co-op experience on modern consoles. And Borderlands 2 really amped things up with the thousands of guns, gigantic bosses, multiple playthroughs, and tasteless humor to boot. I have many fond memories of staying up all night mowing down hordes of enemies with my friends and barely getting bored. Like it or not, Borderlands 2's legacy has really cemented it as one of the greatest shooters of our generation and spawned the loot craze among console gamers worldwide. The game has been a favorite of the PC crowd as well for years, with over a dozen different packs of DLC to keep you engaged for countless hours after you finish the main quest a few times. Dark Souls. For me, it's almost impossible to narrow this down to one game from the series, so I'm talking about the whole shebang here. Rarely in our lifetime do we see a game series who comes along and completely revolutionizes the way we play games. Up until the first games released in 2010, the 7th generation of consoles was littered with tons of games that employed the save state death mentality. Oh, I died. Well, let's just reload the autosave from 4 seconds ago and try again. There was really no risk to playing sloppy. Dark Souls corrected this behavior by forcing the player to rely upon pivotal checkpoints called bonfires, where if you died, you'd return to but have to march your happy butt all the way back to the spot you died to grab your souls, the game's form of currency. As a gamer that shamelessly plays games on easy, Dark Souls was the game I didn't know that I needed. The nail-biting suspense of creeping down a corridor, knowing that every single enemy could erase my entire progress up to that point. It was enthralling. And I wasn't alone, as the game became so popular that it got 2 sequels, a few spiritual successors, and a remaster on the 8th gen. To say that a Souls series took the world by storm would be a massive understatement. Dark Souls, making games hard again. Another potential surprise for some, BioShock Infinite may be the hypest I've ever been for a video game. I love BioShock. Everything from the setting to the music to the lore, BioShock is as beautiful as it is unnerving. After 2 incredibly engaging titles, years passed without a word from the franchise. That was until a teaser for BioShock Infinite dropped and my excitement level sprung to over 9,000. Set in the same universe as its predecessors, Infinite has a beautiful, almost steampunk airship atmosphere and an inventive power-up system that offers multiple ways to skin a cat, so to speak. The AI is also brilliant, headlined by your companion throughout the adventure, Elizabeth. Perhaps the best part about the game was its mind-bending story. A game that constantly kept me guessing, Infinite went above and beyond storytelling to craft a palpable narrative so thick in the game's atmosphere you could cut it with a knife. And it is one of the rare moments in gaming where the ending literally blew my mind. It's a game I've seen absent from a lot of these top 10 lists, and you know, it's a real shame because this is a worthy title. Undeniably my biggest surprise on this list, and another indie title, Celeste, has that rare mix of story and gameplay that developers dream of emulating. And to top it off, this game does it with an action platformer. You follow the protagonist, Madeline, as she knowingly climbs the treacherous Celeste mountain, only to fuse with her mysterious reflection and become somewhat supernatural. Unlike many games these days, Celeste is one of the rare occurrences where I can't find a single criticism. The story, gameplay, music, and artwork are all deftly balanced in a symphony of gaming greatness. It was one of the best platformers I've ever played, and nearly missed winning Game of the Year in 2018. Unbelievable for a game whose prototype was created in just 4 days. Celeste is a true testament to the success of indie games all over the world. What is there to say about Breath of the Wild that hasn't already been gushed about endlessly by online reviewers? While it isn't my personal favorite Zelda game, it is definitely the best. This was the game that caused me to buy a Nintendo Switch. The gorgeous environments of the open world are still unrivaled by any game on the console, and there are an almost infinite amount of things to do in this game. In fact, my original save file is at 130 hours and counting. I honestly hadn't been interested in playing a Zelda title since Wind Waker, but Breath of the Wild appealed to me on a whole new level. It just had enough Zelda fanfare, but was so impressive and expansive that I just couldn't put it down. Breath of the Wild is the perfect title for such a thrilling and immersive Zelda experience, and if you haven't played it yet, shame on you! Well, there you have it. My top 10 games of the past decade. What are your favorites? Please leave them in the comments below. As we close out 2019, I want to say thank you for all that have made my YouTube return welcoming and amazing. I've had a blast researching topics in this weekly episodic series, and I hope for an awesome new year of gaming videos as we enter 2020. Stay safe out there in this new year, and as always, happy spelunking.